If you ever have the chance to date a genius, go for it, but buckle up. If you survive dating a genius and you're not genius yourself, you'll be very well aware of it by the time you're done dating them. One woman that I dated after art school was actually a genius. She belonged to Mensa. I think she had, I don't know, one of the IQs. There's different levels of Mensa, I think. I can't remember. Over 180. And she was extraordinary. I always put her on a bit of a pedestal. I certainly wasn't ready for dating her in many ways, but she was a ballet dancer. She was a violinist. She played the piano. She was a runway model. She was a lingerie model, all these things. And she came from a family that they're all doctors. The father was very president of the heart, blah, blah, all this really tremendous stuff. But I have to say that I could tell stories about her that are remarkable. She was the first person that I talked to that was extremely intelligent, that stayed connected with people, that was goofy, that was playful. I met her because she was learning to play the banjo at the School of Folk with my friend Amy. I watched how she handled her intelligence and how she parlayed it into the best good. She always worked with children. She was always doing something to better herself. I'll give you an example of why I mean genius. She could slip between personalities, not express different personalities to me. But I remember in her graduate program, most students would take 2 or 3 cases, like case studies that they're supposed to do with their internship. She had like 30. And I asked her, I said, why are you doing so many? And she says, because I can. She's like, you know how much I'm shortening the line? You know how long a line there is for these kids to get care? It wasn't hard for her. She could do her work and live her life at the same, she had that. One time I came over to her apartment and she was in the exact same place that I left her. She was at her desk. And she just called me Self. She's like, Self, look what I discovered. You remember that girl that I was having trouble understanding? And she had these pages of notes. She said, I just started putting myself into that girl. Look how my handwriting changes, you know? And I see these notes, it's like da 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 da. And she started like becoming that girl. They talk about profilers. And she said that she was actually recruited by the CIA in college and she didn't want to have a family that she had to lie to. It sounds all make-believe, but every now and again I look in Facebook and she's running a ballet center somewhere, I won't tell where. And she married a guy who looks exactly like me. I'm kidding, Chris. I know your name. I was at their wedding. I watched how that intelligence played out. One thing that was difficult for me to be around her is her life moved so fast with so many extremes. Things that were extreme to me were not to her. She came back to the place one time. She's like, I'm sorry, there was a police thing. The person spoke a particular French dialect. I was translating for the police and, you know, the regular French police couldn't translate for them. So I got caught. It got to the point where I was just like, another damn thing, you know? And for me, I was not able to position that. I just wanted time with her and I was obsessed with the business. And I kept thinking, why does all this shit happen to you? It's because she could handle it. She could put herself in a situation and get herself through the situation in ways that I'll never understand. I've lived with a genius. It's remarkable. It's almost like, holy cow. And then let me tell one story. So she had, of course, a photographic memory, but she also had an auditory memory and she was tested and she saw numbers and colors. I don't know what that means, but I remember trying to argue about some bullshit couples thing and was like, I didn't say that this, that, and the other. And she goes like this, she's listening and she goes, well, what you said was, and this was like a week ago, verbatim. I'm like, son of, I can't live with this. I got nowhere to go. You got to give a man a parachute. Come on. I always had her on a pedestal because I was in awe of those things. It didn't work out for us because probably a couple reasons. The first was I was terrified of having a family and I was not able to see past the business. I was always prioritizing the business. But my ex, my most recent ex before I got married to Katya, was another genius, but a different type of genius. She's a doctor, absolutely fascinating and absolutely frustrating. The other type of geniuses I've dated, it was fascinating and painful at the same time because the introspection that it caused me to have. I just remember the times I'm like, things are being said to me and I'm just like, oh, that hurts, but man, that is so right. And I was fascinated with what this person was going to say next. I just couldn't imagine the word construct that was going to come the way she used English. But ultimately we had a lot of power struggle. I didn't have the same sort of durability. We had other things that were spectacular, but the intelligence and the wit and the ability to cut through the bullshit as part of her training and her fascination with the mind as a psychiatrist. I'm always date smarter, always. It was my motto. And for the most part, I was pretty lucky with that. It didn't mean I was able to sustain it. I'm certainly better because I was around those people. I wish that I could go back and be a more mature, aware young man. For the girls that I met because they were too far ahead of me, emotionally intelligent. I didn't have it. Men can grow fast too if they have a dad who is really invested in their emotional growth. My dad was not present. There were just really immature things that I hadn't worked through as a young man about a couple and commitment and just partnerships that I didn't understand. I learned that there's different types of intelligence and there's different expressions of intelligence. There's someone that paints a certain way. There's someone that sings a certain way. So it's not one thing. I think intelligence is an individual's speciality. If you survive dating a genius and you're not genius yourself, you'll be very well aware of it by the time you're done dating them.